The moment the steel gates close behind an inmate entering ADX Florence, their world changes forever. No noise, no voices, no faces, just the cold echo of a concrete hallway built to erase every sense of freedom. For most people, the first day in prison is confusing and chaotic, but inside the world's most secure prison, the first 24 hours are something different. They are controlled, silent, and calculated to the smallest detail. This is the place reserved for the inmates the federal government calls too dangerous for anywhere else. Men who have attacked staff, escaped other facilities, or carried out crimes that shook the nation. At ADX, every step they take on day one, from the moment the transport vehicle enters the perimeter to the moment they lie down on their concrete bed, is designed to send one unmistakable message. You are completely under control. There is no welcome speech, no orientation class, no noise from other inmates. Instead, the inmate is surrounded by officers wearing protective gear, cameras mounted in every direction, and a silence so heavy it feels physical. Their restraints stay on until deep inside the building. Their property is taken. Their name is replaced by a number. And their very first night is spent alone inside a cell built not just to confine, but to isolate. In these first 24 hours, every decision is made for them. What they eat, where they stand, when they move, how long they breathe outdoor air. This is the Supermax. This is the place designed to break routine, break resistance, and break connection. And for the inmate who steps inside for the first time, one realization hits harder than anything else. This isn't temporary. This is your life now. Before we dive in, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to HFD Achieve Crimes. Every bit of support helps us reveal the hidden truths behind the world's prisons and crime documentaries. Now let's go inside. The journey to ADX Florence does not begin at the prison gate. It begins hours earlier, inside a tightly controlled transport vehicle moving through quiet Colorado roads before sunrise. The inmate inside is already in full restraints, handcuffs, leg irons, and a locked black box device over the wrist to prevent even the smallest movement. 2 or more officers sit close, watching every breath, every flinch, every shift of weight. No talking, no sudden turns, no freedom. As the vehicle approaches the vast desert landscape of Florence, the Supermax appears like a concrete fortress built into the earth itself. Tall fences, razor wire spirals, guard towers, and empty land stretching in all directions. There are no houses nearby, no traffic, no sound of city life. ADX was designed this way on purpose, far away, isolated, and impossible to reach accidentally. When the gates finally open, the atmosphere changes instantly. Officers communicate through short, sharp commands. Extra security positions activate. Cameras track the vehicle from multiple angles. Even though this moment lasts only seconds, it sets the tone for everything that follows. This is a place built to control every inch of movement. The inmate is escorted out slowly, still in full restraints. Their feet move in short steps because of the leg irons. Their wrists burn from the tight chains. They are surrounded by officers wearing protective vests, carrying radios, and following a strict formation. There is no confusion, no wasted motion. Every officer knows exactly where to stand and what to do. Inside the first holding area, the silence hits harder. ADX is quiet in a way most prisons are not. There are no voices from other inmates, no loud units, no echoing conversations. Just cold concrete, metal doors, and the hum of fluorescent lights. Here, the inmate waits while officers confirm identity, transfer paperwork, and verify that the person standing in front of them is the same one listed in federal records. Then comes the strip search, mandatory for all arrivals, no exceptions. After that, medical staff check for injuries, illnesses, and mental health concerns. It is quick, methodical, and emotionless. Only after all checks are done does the inmate take their next steps deeper into ADX. Restraints remain locked. Officers stay close. The inmate walks through a maze of heavy doors, each one controlled electronically, each one designed to isolate sound and block escape routes. The deeper they go, the colder and quieter it becomes. For the inmate, this moment is overwhelming. They know ADX by reputation, the stories, the documentaries, the warnings from other prisoners. But stepping inside feels different. It feels heavier, darker, more final. They are not entering a prison where they will mix with others, talk on the tier, or share a yard. They are entering a place where silence is normal, where solitary is the default, and where every day is planned to remove control from the inmate's hands. And as they reach the door of their first isolation cell, still chained, still watched from every angle, one truth becomes painfully clear. ADX Florence is not just a prison. It is a system designed to control a person completely, starting from the very first hour. Once the inmate steps inside ADX Florence, the real intake procedure starts. It is not loud, rushed, or chaotic like other prisons. Here, everything is slow, controlled, and carried out with an exact routine that never changes. This routine is designed not just for safety, but to send a clear psychological message. You are no longer in charge of anything, not even the smallest part of your day. The inmate is guided into a narrow processing room where two officers stand on each side, one documenting information while the other observes every movement. A camera records the entire intake. The inmate is instructed to stand still. No turning, no bending, no sudden motions. Officers remove each restraint one at a time, never all at once. The process takes minutes, not seconds, because every action must follow the same strict procedure. Next comes identification. The inmate's name, number, and history are confirmed through multiple systems. Staff check federal records, classification forms, and any past incidents from other prisons. At ADX, background matters, because this facility houses inmates with escape attempts, staff assaults, gang leadership roles, or national security cases. Each detail determines how restricted their life will be inside the Supermax. After identification, the inmate receives the ADX orientation packet. Not a meeting, just a set of printed rules slid across a table. It explains behavior expectations, disciplinary procedures, and the reality of life inside a place where most inmates spend nearly every hour alone. There is no conversation, no welcome, no questions answered. The rules exist simply to show structure. Then medical staff enter. They check blood pressure, injuries, medications, and mental status. It's fast and quiet. Even during this exam, the inmate is watched closely by security officers who stand only a few steps away. Everything is documented: posture, tone of voice, level of cooperation. Psychological staff assess whether the inmate is stable, aggressive, confused, or at risk of self-harm. Even though this evaluation happens, many critics have argued that ADX's extreme isolation is not suitable for anyone with mental health conditions. But policy requires this screening, so it is completed and logged before the inmate moves forward. After the medical and psychological checks, the inmate is given standard issue clothing and a small set of hygiene items. No personal property from their past prison arrives with them. Not pictures, not books, not mail. In ADX, personal items are privileges earned slowly over time. On day one, the inmate receives only the minimum required for basic living. Finally, officers prepare for transport to the first housing range. The inmate's restraints go back on, every single one. Officers check each lock twice. Then the inmate is positioned between an escort team and walked through a series of automated steel doors that open and close one at a time, creating a secure path deeper into the Supermax. This walk is silent. No inmates can be seen. No voices echo down the halls. Just concrete, steel, and the sound of heavy doors sliding open. To the inmate, the message becomes clearer with each step. You have entered a place designed to control every breath, every movement, every moment. ADX Florence does not adjust to you. You adjust to it. The walk from intake to the housing unit is one of the most controlled movements in any prison in the United States. At ADX Florence, even a single inmate's transfer through the hallway triggers a strict internal lockdown. Doors freeze. Staff pause. No one moves except the escort team and the inmate chained between them. The hallways inside ADX are long, silent, and built to feel almost endless. Bright overhead lights reflect off smooth concrete floors. Thick walls swallow sound, making even footsteps feel muted. For a new arrival, this silence is unnerving. In most prisons, noise is constant: voices, doors slamming, officers shouting commands. But here, the quiet is intentional. It reminds the inmate that they are entering a place unlike any other. The escort team moves in a tight formation, 2 officers at the sides, 1 behind, and 1 leading the route. Every few steps, another steel door opens automatically, then closes the moment they pass through. Each door is heavy, reinforced, and controlled from a secure room out of sight. If something were to go wrong, the entire corridor could shut down instantly, trapping the inmate between barriers. As the team passes deeper into the facility, the air grows cooler. There are no windows in these hallways, no outside light, no sense of direction. The inmate walks through a maze they can't understand. ADX was designed so no one could easily map it in their mind. Even long-term inmates rarely know how the building is structured. Finally, they reach the special housing unit, often called the transition range. Most new inmates spend their first days, sometimes weeks, here before being assigned to a permanent cell. The doors on this range are thick, soundproof, and built to eliminate communication. Officers unlock the entrance with a series of checks, and the inmate is guided inside. The atmosphere changes again. It is even quieter here. The only sounds come from air vents and faint mechanical clicks from the security systems. No yelling, no conversations, no movement from other inmates. Each cell is fully isolated. The inmate is taken to their assigned door, labeled only by a number. The escort team positions themselves carefully. 1 officer controls the door. 2 others stand ready. The inmate is instructed to face the wall. The door opens, and the moment the inmate steps inside, officers give short commands to remove restraints through a small slot. They never enter the cell themselves. Once the restraints are removed and the slot closes, the heavy steel door locks automatically with a deep, echoing thud. The inmate is alone for the first time. Inside, the cell is small and harsh. A concrete bed, a stainless steel toilet and sink, a thick glass window that shows nothing but sky or a wall. The lights remain on, though dimmer than the hallway. There is no sound, no sign of life beyond the walls. For a moment, the inmate stands still, realizing they are not just locked in, they are cut off. No voices, no footsteps, no hint of another person existing nearby. This is the start of their life at ADX Florence. A life where silence dominates. A life where every movement is limited. A life where the world outside feels like a distant memory. And as the inmate takes their first breath alone in this cell, they understand the truth. Isolation at ADX isn't a punishment. It is the foundation of the entire system. The first 24 hours inside ADX Florence are not filled with activity. In fact, they are defined by the lack of it. Once the cell door closes, time begins to move differently. Minutes feel slower. Silence feels heavier. The inmate has no schedule to follow, no tasks to complete, and no interaction with anyone. Their entire world becomes a concrete box with a single steel door. Inside the cell, everything is built to prevent risk. The bed is a concrete platform. The desk and stool are shaped into the wall. The window is a narrow vertical slit, too small to see much of anything except the sky. Even the toilet is designed to prevent tampering. ADX is not meant for comfort. It is meant for control. During these first hours, the inmate's mind races. They try to understand the rules, the sounds, the feeling of being completely alone. In most prisons, voices echo through the tiers, officers call out orders, and inmates shout to each other. But here, every sound is distant. Every movement is monitored. It feels as though the entire building is holding its breath. Mealtime arrives without warning. The small slot in the door opens, and a tray slides through. No conversation. No eye contact. Just a silent exchange. The food is standard federal prison meals. Nothing more, nothing less. The slot closes again, and the silence returns instantly. It's a reminder that even eating happens alone. Later, officers conduct checks through the narrow observation window on the door. They don't open the cell. They don't speak unless necessary. They simply look in to confirm that the inmate is alive, awake, or lying safely on the bed. These checks happen throughout the day and night, part of the constant surveillance that defines life at ADX. If the inmate is classified for recreation, they may receive a short period outside their cell. But outside does not mean freedom. Recreation takes place in a small concrete enclosure, sometimes referred to as a pen. It is open to the sky but surrounded by tall walls on every side. There is no view of other inmates. No contact. No shared yard. just a space barely large enough to pace or stretch. The walk to recreation, if allowed, is just as controlled as every other movement. Officers apply full restraints again, handcuffs, shackles, and waist chains, before escorting the inmate through the hallway. Every door opens and closes with the same strict timing. Every step is monitored, and when recreation ends, the process repeats in reverse. For many new arrivals, this moment is the hardest. They realize that every privilege, extra property, more yard time, access to programs, must be earned through perfect compliance. ADX operates on a system where behavior is tracked closely, and even minor violations can return an inmate to the strictest form of solitary confinement. As night approaches, the lights dim slightly, but they never turn fully off. ADX does not allow complete darkness. It would make monitoring difficult. The inmate lies on the concrete bed, listening to almost nothing. A distant vent, a faint mechanical hum. No voices, no life. The silence is the loudest part of ADX. And while the inmate may not see another person face to face, the prison sees them. Cameras, checks, record logs. Everything is observed. By the end of the first 24 hours, the inmate begins to understand the reality of ADX Florence. This is a place where isolation is not temporary. It is the daily routine. By the time the first full day ends inside ADX Florence, the inmate begins to feel a change that is deeper than physical confinement. It is a mental shift, slow, heavy, and impossible to ignore. The silence that once felt strange now feels permanent. The isolation that seemed temporary now feels like the new normal. And the reality settles in. Life here will not resemble anything they have known before. Inside the cell, there is nothing to distract the mind. No television unless approved. No radio. No conversation. No footsteps from nearby inmates. ADX was engineered to remove environmental stimulation. For many, this creates an immediate psychological pressure. Thoughts echo in the quiet. Time stretches. Minutes feel like hours. The inmate instinctively tests their environment. They tap the wall, no response. They speak softly, no voice answers. They press their ear to the steel door, nothing. This place is designed so inmates cannot hear each other. Even a shout would fade into the thick layers of concrete. Throughout the day, officers appear at the door window for routine checks. They do not linger or start conversations. Their job is monitoring, not communication. Each time the small shadow passes the door, the inmate is reminded of the constant surveillance. They are always being watched, yet never spoken to. Some inmates try to maintain control by creating small routines, push-ups, pacing the floor, reading the rule handbook, folding and unfolding the blanket. Anything that gives structure. But for a new arrival, even these routines feel fragile. ADX does not ask inmates to adjust. It forces them to. At some point, the inmate may attempt to sleep, but rest comes slowly. The lights never turn completely off, and the stillness makes every thought louder. They think about the world outside. Family, past prisons, courtrooms, mistakes, choices. They wonder how many years will be spent here. They wonder how long it will take before the silence feels normal. For high-profile inmates or those with violent histories, staff monitor them even more closely during these hours. Intake logs document every behavior: pacing, talking to themselves, refusing food, sitting still for long periods. ADX is not just a prison. It is a system that analyzes inmates from the moment they arrive. By now, the message has sunk in. There is no one to talk to, nowhere to walk freely, nothing to influence except their own thoughts. The inmate understands that compliance is the only way forward. Privileges are earned slowly: books, limited phone calls, controlled programs. But these come only after months or years of perfect behavior. Until then, the cell remains their world. As the second day approaches, the inmate lies awake, listening to a building designed to stay silent. Somewhere deep in the prison, a door closes. A vent hums. A distant metal click echoes. And in that moment, they feel the weight of ADX Florence settle fully onto them. Not just as a place they have entered, but as a place they must now survive. When the second day begins inside ADX Florence, nothing feels different at first. The lights never fully went out, the silence never lifted, and the cell never changed. But for the inmate, day 2 brings a new kind of awareness. a clearer understanding of the system they are now part of, and a sharper realization that life in the Supermax runs on rules they cannot bend. The morning begins with another tray passed through the slot. No announcement, no voice, just the metal flap opening and closing. The inmate eats alone again, in the same cold room, with the same concrete walls pressing in on every side. The routine is already forming, even without them wanting it to. Soon after, the officers conduct their first full check of the day. They look in through the narrow window, verify the inmate is awake, breathing, and stable. They write the observation in the log and move on. These checks happen repeatedly, not because staff expect problems, but because ADX operates on strict documentation. Every movement, every reaction, every decision from the inmate is recorded somewhere. As time passes, the inmate begins to study the cell more closely. They notice how everything is designed with intention. The desk is too smooth to break apart. The bed cannot be moved. The window is too narrow to see the compound or other inmates. Even the air vents are engineered to prevent communication. ADX is not simply a building. It is a behavioral system shaped by architecture. Later in the day, the inmate may receive their first brief meeting with a case manager or unit staff. It takes place through the door, not face-to-face. Staff explain only the essentials, rules, restrictions, how privileges work, and the behavioral levels that determine whether an inmate remains in strict isolation or slowly earns small freedoms. The message is simple. Good behavior unlocks inches, not miles. At this point, the inmate begins to understand the true structure of the Supermax. There are no regular programs, no open movement, no shared spaces. Progress inside ADX is slow, controlled, and constantly evaluated. If recreation is approved again, the process repeats. Restraints go back on, escorts take position, and the inmate is walked down the same quiet hallway. The rec pen feels no larger than yesterday. The sky looks the same. But now, the inmate realizes this hour might become the most valuable part of their day, the only moment they can breathe outside of their cell. As day 2 continues, the psychological impact deepens. The first 24 hours were shocking, a sudden collapse of freedom. But the second day reveals something even heavier, the permanence of the routine. This is not a temporary lockdown. It is the very structure of the prison. Every day will follow a similar pattern. No noise, no contact, no choices. Still, the inmate begins forming small survival strategies. Some pace the cell from wall to wall, counting steps. Some focus on breathing exercises. Others repeat memories to keep their thoughts steady. In a place built to remove stimulation, the mind becomes the inmate's only tool. As night approaches again, the quiet settles into a familiar weight. The inmate lies on the concrete bed, not as a new arrival anymore, but as someone beginning to understand what long-term life inside ADX truly feels like. And the truth becomes clear. The first 24 hours break the silence. Day 2 teaches how to live inside it. By the third day inside ADX Florence, the shock begins to fade and the routine begins to settle in. Not because the inmate chooses it, but because the prison's design forces every person into the same pattern. At ADX, routine is not a choice. It is the backbone of control. The morning starts exactly like the day before. A tray appears in the slot without a sound. The inmate eats alone, sitting on the same concrete bed or the built-in stool. The menu barely changes. Breakfast is simple, predictable, and silent. There is no social moment, no conversation, no noise of a busy dining hall. Food is fuel, nothing more. Soon after, an officer passes by for the first daily check. The inmate stands or sits still while the officer looks through the narrow window on the door. A quick visual inspection, no words exchanged. The officer writes in the logbook and moves on. It becomes clear that these checks are not personal. They are part of a system that runs the same way every single day. By now, the inmate knows the sounds of the unit. The low hum of ventilation, the soft mechanical clicks of doors locking, the distant movement of carts. There are no shouts, no arguments, no noise of other inmates. ADX was built so each person feels isolated in their own small world. Slowly, the inmate begins to understand that the silence is not a mistake, it is the design. Throughout the day, the inmate may receive small items depending on their level, a pencil, a packet of forms, or a religious text. Every object is controlled. Every privilege must be earned. The inmate begins to notice how officers speak little but observe everything: posture, behavior, cooperation. Even silence becomes communication in a place like this. Recreation, if allowed, remains the only break from the cell. The escort team arrives with full restraints. The walk down the hallway feels familiar now, step by step, door by door, always under full control. The recreation pen still feels small, but the inmate understands its importance more clearly. The open sky, even in a restricted space, becomes the only reminder that the outside world still exists. Inside the cell, hours stretch. The inmate tries to create structure, pacing the floor, cleaning the sink, folding the blanket, counting the tiles, doing short exercises. These small routines are important. Without them, the long stretches of silence could slowly erode their sense of time. By afternoon, the inmate begins noticing how ADX controls not just movement, but thought. With no distractions, the mind feels louder. Memories feel sharper. Worries feel heavier. Some inmates review their past choices. Some think about family. Some think about their case. Others simply focus on getting through the day without losing control. As evening approaches, another tray arrives. Another check is completed. Another entry is made in the logbook. Then the cell returns to silence. The lights dim, but never fully go dark. The inmate lies on the concrete platform, looking at the ceiling, listening for anything: a voice, a footstep, a distant door, but hears only air moving through the vents. On day 3, the inmate realizes something important. ADX doesn't break a person all at once. It breaks them slowly, through repetition. Each day looks the same. Each action feels the same. Each hour blends into the next. And as the routine settles deeper into their life, the inmate understands the real power of the Supermax. It controls the mind by controlling time itself. By the 4th day inside ADX Florence, the inmate begins to feel a quiet pressure that is harder to explain than fear or shock. It is the pressure of isolation, a force that does not shout or threaten but works slowly, silently, and constantly. ADX was designed around this idea, that the mind can be controlled not through noise, but through the complete removal of it. The day starts the same as always. A tray slides through the slot. The inmate eats alone. The silence is no longer surprising, but now it feels heavier. The walls that once seemed like simple concrete now feel closer. The air feels tighter. The room feels smaller. Even though nothing has changed physically, the inmate's perception shifts. This is the real beginning of isolation's impact. As the hours pass, the inmate notices their thoughts change. With no conversations, no social contact, no simple human interactions, the brain begins to do the work on its own. Memories replay. Regrets surface. Small problems feel bigger because there are no distractions to push them aside. ADX does not force inmates into panic. It simply gives the mind enough silence to create its own. The daily checks continue. Officers look through the window, write a note, and move away. Their presence is quick and emotionless. The inmate sees human faces, but never hears a human voice directed at them. This gap between being watched and being spoken to creates an unusual feeling. You are constantly seen, but never acknowledged. If recreation is allowed, the short walk through the hallway provides the only visual change of the day. The doors open and close in the same rhythm. The escort team stands in the same formation, and the concrete recreation pen offers the same small piece of sky as before. The inmate begins to understand that these small moments, stepping outside the cell, breathing fresh air, hold more value now than they ever did on the outside. Inside the cell, isolation becomes more obvious. The inmate may begin talking to themselves, not out of desperation, but to hear a voice. They may pace the room longer than before. They may count steps or create imaginary goals just to keep their mind active. ADX forces inmates to become their own source of stimulation. Time feels different now. The day feels longer even though the clock has not changed. Without social cues or regular movement, the brain loses its sense of rhythm. Morning blends into afternoon. Afternoon blends into night. The inmate begins to understand why long-term solitary confinement is considered one of the most intense forms of control in the prison system. As evening arrives, the tray appears again. Another check. Another log entry. Another hour of silence. The inmate lies on the concrete bed, knowing that tomorrow will look identical to today. That is the design. At ADX, the repetition itself is the tool. And as the fourth day ends, the inmate finally sees the deeper truth. The walls do not need to move, and the officers do not need to shout. The isolation itself is the punishment, the system, and the message. ADX does not crush the body. It slowly shapes the mind. By the end of the first several days inside ADX Florence, the inmate begins to understand something deeper than isolation or routine. They realize that this place is not temporary. The silence, the structure, the slow repetition, these are not just part of arrival. They are the foundation of long-term life in the world's most secure prison. The 9th day starts exactly like the ones before. A tray slides into the cell with no voice and no warning. The inmate eats quietly, already familiar with the taste, the portion, the rhythm. The morning check follows, a quick look through the door window, a note in a logbook, and then the officer moves on. The inmate no longer waits for conversation. They know it will not come. By now, the silence feels different. At first it felt heavy and strange, but now it has become a constant background, like a second atmosphere. The inmate understands how ADX uses quiet not just as a condition, but as a tool. Without noise, there is nothing to distract the mind. Thoughts become louder, memories sharper, and emotions harder to avoid. Throughout the day, the inmate studies the cell with new eyes. The concrete bed, the fixed desk, the narrow window. Everything is a reminder that this place was built with purpose. ADX does not need force to control behavior. The environment does the work. There is nowhere to look, no one to speak to, nothing to break routine. The structure shapes the inmate more than any rulebook. If recreation is approved, the walk down the hallway feels familiar now. The restraints, the escort team, the echo of footsteps, it all follows the same pattern. The outdoor pen shows only a slice of sky, but the inmate feels how important that small view has become. Even limited freedom feels valuable in a world designed to restrict every movement. Back in the cell, hours stretch again. The inmate fills time with pacing, cleaning, stretching, or simply thinking. These small routines, once meaningless, now feel necessary. They keep the mind steady in a place where time moves slowly and silently. As evening arrives, another tray appears and another check is completed. The lights dim but never go out. The inmate lies on the concrete bed, realizing that each day inside ADX looks almost identical, yet each one changes them a little more. The first day introduced the shock. The following days introduced the structure. Now, the inmate understands the deeper point. ADX Florence doesn't break a person all at once. It reshapes them slowly, through silence, repetition, and isolation. In this moment, the inmate accepts the truth. Life inside the Supermax will demand patience, control, and mental strength. The world they knew is gone. This new world, quiet, strict, controlled, is now their reality. The first days inside ADX Florence reveal more than rules or routines. They reveal a system built to control every moment, every movement, and every thought. For the inmates who enter, the world becomes smaller, quieter, and heavier with each passing hour. But this is only the beginning. Life inside the world's most secure prison is a test of patience, discipline, and survival inside the mind. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more real stories from inside America's hidden prison systems.